Y'all ever heard of Arrowhead?
I'm sure y'all have.
It's a game studio. Here, watch.
Helldivers 2 kinda shadow dropped out of nowhere.
Acting as this year's game that took over the world, and with it, a dogged and zealous player base to match the game's themes and setting.
Even beating back their publisher, Sony, in a recent struggle to get the game out to more people.
Arrowhead Game Studio, who developed both Helldivers 1 and Helldivers 2, sits as sort of a one-in-a-kind game company. They have a massive respect for community for any game that they make, and this has sort of propelled them into stardom in regards to their player bases. But we're not here to talk about Helldivers. There's another game that they made that I don't see enough people talking about. Right, so you probably have a lot of questions, and all of them will be answered in due time, I promise.
Ah, a visitor. Stay a while. Stay forever. Stay as long as you wish, and I will tell you a story of wizards. Just wizards, no vampires. Once upon a time, in a land known as Midgard, there was the noble order of magic. The wizards of the order lived in a great castle called Aldraheim, where they studied the fine art of spellcasting. They often lent a helping hand to the less gifted inhabitants of Midgard, defending them against monsters, running fetch quests, and at times even saving the world. In time, the Order of Magic began to expand into new frontiers, founding new schools all over Midgard. However, this short time of prosperity would come to a brutal end. An evil presence infiltrated the Order of Magic and sowed the seeds of civil war between the schools, marking the beginning of the legendary Wizard Wars. As the wars raged on, the wizards' numbers dwindled. After dying and being revived countless times, they began to deteriorate. At the end of the wars, only a handful of wizards remained. Blabbering, violent, confused, never invited to parties. Their purpose and sanity unraveled. Without their protectors around to accidentally burn the crops, kill all the livestock, and incinerate most of the townspeople, the humans rejoiced and entered what came to be known as the Golden Age of Man. In this time of relative peace and calm, the gentle winds of time ruffled the sensitive braids and beards of the seers of the world. The greatest of them all was Nostrir the Soothsayer, and his vision was clear. A child, infused with all the stray magical energies released during the devastating Wizard Wars, had been born somewhere in Midgard. Once of age, this child would possess limitless power over the elements, and thus the ability to make the world a better place, free of suffering for all. But the prophecy also spoke of a shadow which intends to seize all of Midgard, and for its first step, it would prevent the child from ever realizing her power. These dark tidings at hand, the handsome teacher Vlad decided to end his well-deserved multi-decade-long vacation and travel back to Castle Aldraheim. There he hoped to find 1 to 4 brave wizards to whom he could give the glorious quest of saving the world. Trollgubbe, Je vandrar kvarter om tider ett vipskastler puff. Visignate de Alderheim. Se opportuni, Hjälpt av kissikatti tro. Helde!
Right, so Magicka is a weird game. I'm not even sure if there's really a genre that can describe how it plays very well, but I'll give it a shot. Basically, Magicka's #1 mechanic is its spell crafting system. You're given 8 elements that, for the most part, can be freely mixed together to create different spells. You can decide to cast any combination of spells either on yourself, on your melee weapon, as a projectile, or as an AoE. There's even some specific spell combinations that allow you to cast it in a completely unique way. These are typically relegated to unlocks, but you can, by chance, find the method to cast it if you get lucky. Elements also have specific traits associated with them, and all of them sort of make sense. Water can put out fire, fire can dry you off, water will conduct lightning, and mixing some elements will even get you completely new subsets of elements. Fire and water will make steam, cold and water will end up making ice and stuff like that. Now, of course, if you've never played Magicka before, this is going to sound like a lot, and that's because it is. The game sort of revels in its chaotic humor, and it's only further accented by a new wizard's inability to cast spells correctly, often resulting in either you or your friends dying because of some chaotic, crazy mess that you made. Those are heal bombs.
Wait, does that mean... Are you fucking... You haven't even been using them right! That was Dragon Strike.
Okay. I'd also say that the game's tone also benefits its goofiness as well. The game's Steam page describes itself as a satirical adventure through a fantasy world, and that does check out. Going into that, though, the game does feature a lot of pop culture references and old meme culture, which can seem kind of like a positive or a negative depending on how you look at it. Personally, I find it a pretty interesting time capsule, basically, but I mean, you know. Even if you don't like that sort of thing, I wouldn't necessarily see that as like a deal breaker or anything. As opposed to yourself.
Also, beam with me.
I don't know why that happened, sorry. Oh right, it's AoE. Sorry.
That's from getting healed.
The game's a lot of fun, but it's not without its own weird little issues, and it's not even issues surrounding the game itself. You might have been wondering why I'm playing the second game in the franchise and not the first one. And there's a good reason for that. I can't in good faith recommend the first Magicka game, and that's simply because it doesn't work on some PCs. Magicka 1 originally came out in 2011, seeing frequent updates throughout that time. Occasionally, one of these last updates actually ended up making it to where you can't play it if your computer's just too new. Some people will have no issue actually running the game, and others will just crash before the game even starts up with no real way to fix it. There is a fan patch to try to make it work, but even through all of my testing, and the testing of my girlfriend, nothing ended up working, which is why I have to use footage of the second game. Which works miles better, and because this narrative isn't super important, you can play the second game and basically get the grander experience. It doesn't really matter all that much. If you're wondering why Arrowhead doesn't just fix Magicka 1, it's because I don't think they can. Arrowhead is an indie game studio, and back around the 2010s, it was a lot harder to get your game on Steam. As a result, indie games needed publishers in order to make their games actually, you know, work. Budgets and console ports and all the other good stuff is a whole thing that developers have to worry about, but because they don't have the money to make that work, publishers are kind of seen as a necessary evil in order to make any of this actually be a thing. It's for this reason that I don't necessarily blame Arrowhead for not fixing anything having to do with the original Magicka. But yeah, I mean, then again, I could be wrong about that. There's not a whole lot of information regarding what Arrowhead can't and can't do with the Magicka franchise. Whether or not they actually have the license to their own game is something that I couldn't really find anywhere. That being said though, their focus right now is Helldivers, so it sort of figures that they can't necessarily focus on Magicka anymore. Not unless a third game comes out of the woodwork somewhere, but I kinda doubt that. People have been wanting it, but they just haven't said anything about making a third Magicka game. And that sucks because again, the only other Magicka game that's on Steam doesn't work for like, I don't know, half of the people who try to run it? Probably more, maybe less, I don't know. Arrowhead didn't even make Magicka 2. In fact, it was just Paradox North that made the game. Prior to this, they also made a spin-off called Magicka Wizard Wars. The intro cutscene to Magicka 2 was talking about it. That's a real game, but you can't play it anymore because it was just a PvP-centered version of Magicka. And they very likely shut the server down and delisted the game sometime in the past, I don't know. But it was a whole thing. Also, I should probably mention that Paradox Interactive were the publishers for the entire Magicka series, starting from the first Magicka game. And I mean, with that being said, I don't necessarily know what Paradox's track record are for properly treating indie game developers, but I mean, this whole thing isn't necessarily doing them any favors if they are the ones to blame. And yeah, no, if that is the case, it's kind of funny that Sony also started giving them trouble with Helldivers. I wonder if Gauntlet had any issues relating to publisher problems. Hold on, let me look real quick. Well, I couldn't find anything, but that sure does say Warner Brother Games, so, you know. I just infused my sword with heal. Look, I'm tired of being negative, and especially bringing up negative topics in, like, videos and stuff, just because it's like, I mean, I have good stuff to talk about and things that I like, but something like this I feel like needs to be stated. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, Magicka 2 is plenty fun. As it currently stands, you can get Magicka 2 for less than a fountain drink at like a convenience store or something. So I mean, it's a really cheap couple of hours to just have some chaotic fun with your friend. Or friends, you know, whatever. I will say though, that if you're a fan of this franchise, and either you or a friend that you know happen to be savvy with snooping through game code, then I mean, hey, why not try to give an attempt at fixing the first game, because that'd be really cool. That's extra Magicka content that some people just don't have access to. Then I'm sure everybody would be appreciative if that was just a thing that we could do again. Also, I mean, unfortunately, I guess that means if Paradox goes down or dissolves or something, we might not be able to play Magicka 2, which would suck. But I'm sure that'll be fixed with, like, I don't know, Hamachi or something? We'll find a way around it, for sure. Okay, I have a health shield, so now I negate health.
I have a shield sword?
Yeah, you have a shield sword.
Hang on.
Done to myself.
Can somebody hit me with a heal beam for a second? I want to see what happens. It deals damage! Also, if you want to be uncold, fire and self-cast. Ouch.
I made you uncold.
You did make me uncold, to be fair. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for Magicka. I don't know, just play it. The game's good and it's cheap as dirt, so why not? Like, I don't know, if you just want to have fun messing around, you can't really go wrong with Magicka. It's pretty tightly designed, and even though the game is short, there is harder difficulties and unlocks to work towards. So I mean, why not? Me though, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Like, subscribe, join Patreon, and y'all have a good one.